Okay, so imagine this. A creature that's been extinct for 13,000 years is, according to one company, walking the Earth right now. This is the wild and super controversial story of the de-extinction of the dire wolf. But is it a scientific miracle or maybe a cautionary tale? Let's get into it.
So, in early 2025, a genetics company called Colossal Biosciences dropped this absolute bombshell of an announcement. They did it. They successfully brought back the first dire wolf pups. I mean, this is stuff straight out of science fiction. And here they are. These two little pups were named Romulus and Remus, which is a nod to the mythological founders of Rome. And you know, that name choice wasn't just random. The dire wolf got super famous because of Game of Thrones, and it's pretty clear the company knows exactly who its audience is here. But this brings us to the most important question of all. Are these actually resurrected prehistoric predators? Or are they something else entirely? Kind of like a genetically engineered illusion? That's what we're here to figure out.
To really understand if this is a true comeback, we first have to meet the original. So let's rewind the clock and uncover the story of the real dire wolf.
So our whole understanding of this animal has changed, like a lot. Fossils were first dug up way back in 1854, and for more than 100 years, scientists just assumed it was basically a bigger, tougher version of the gray wolf. But then, a massive study in 2021 completely flipped the script, proving the direwolf was its own unique species that disappeared 13,000 years ago. In that 2021 study, it revealed something just astonishing. The direwolf wasn't a close cousin to the gray wolf at all. Turns out, their evolutionary paths went in different directions almost 6 million years ago. Physically, yeah, they were about 25% bigger, with a wider head and a bite that could crush bone. This was a totally different branch of the canine family tree. Okay, so how in the world do you even begin to bring back a creature that's been gone for thousands of years? Well, scientists have three main tools in their de-extinction toolkit. The three main ways to go about it are backbreeding, cloning, and genetic engineering. And let me tell you, each one comes with its own incredible possibilities and some absolutely massive challenges. So first up, you've got backbreeding. Think of it like trying to do evolution in reverse. You take a living relative and you start selectively breeding the ones that just happen to show traits of their extinct ancestor. The best example of this is the Quagga project, where they're trying to recreate this extinct type of zebra by breeding zebras with fewer and fewer stripes. The result looks really similar, but it begs the question, is it genetically the same animal? Then, of course, there's cloning. This makes a perfect genetic copy, just like Dolly the sheep. But for de-extinction, you need a perfectly preserved cell nucleus from the extinct animal, and that is incredibly hard to find. They actually did it once with the bucardo, a type of Spanish goat, but the clone had a lung defect and it died just 10 minutes after it was born. This makes it the only animal in history to go extinct twice. Wow. And that brings us to the third and most cutting-edge method, genetic engineering. This is where you take the DNA of a living relative and use a tool like CRISPR. You can think of it like a tiny pair of genetic scissors to edit its genes bit by bit to match the blueprint of the extinct species. And this is exactly the path that Colossal Biosciences took. So let's break down the exact blueprint Colossal followed to create Romulus and Remus. How they do it? All right, first they needed some ancient DNA, which they managed to get from two different fossils. After they sequenced what they could, they compared it to the gray wolf and found it was a 99.5% match. Then the editing began. Using CRISPR, they made 20 specific changes to 14 different genes in gray wolf cells. They were targeting traits like bone density to get that wider skull and muscle attachment points for that powerful jaw. They put that edited nucleus into a dog's egg cell, and on October 1st, 2024, the pups were born. So the science is it's remarkable. The pups are alive, they're healthy. But this brings us right back to our big question. Is this a genuine dire wolf? Or is it a gray wolf in dire wolf's clothing? It's really all about perspective. I mean, look at this. A 99.5% DNA match between a gray wolf and a dire wolf. That sounds incredibly close, right? But then look at the other comparison. Humans and chimpanzees share 98.8% of their DNA. That tiny little percentage difference accounts for everything that separates us. A small gap in the code can be a massive evolutionary canyon. And this, right here, gets to the very heart of the debate. Colossal made 20 changes to 14 genes, but that is a microscopic fraction of the entire wolf genome. What you have is a gray wolf that has been edited to look like a dire wolf, but genetically, it is still overwhelmingly a gray wolf.
And you know, beyond the genetics, there's this deeper, almost philosophical problem. These pups have no dire wolf parents to teach them how to be dire wolves. They're going to spend their entire lives in a high-security enclosure, not out in a natural habitat. The prey they evolved to hunt, also long extinct. So critics are arguing this isn't really ecological restoration. It's the creation of a living museum piece, a showpiece for billionaires. And that really forces us to zoom out and ask a much bigger question about where we should be focusing our efforts, our money, and all of this incredible technology.
2. That's it. That's the number of northern white rhinos left on the entire planet. They're both old. When they die, that species will be gone forever. An entire branch of life just erased in our lifetime.
And this brings us to that timeless saying, right? We have the technology to edit life and maybe even reverse extinction. The science is fascinating, no doubt. But in an age of mass extinction, with literally 1 million species at risk, is this where our focus should really be? So that leaves us with this final, really challenging thought. Is our priority to resurrect the ghosts of the past? Or should we be using every single resource we have to save the living species that are still here with us, right now, before they too become just another candidate for de-extinction? The choice, ultimately, is ours.